Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Wheel of Albums. It's the podcast where we spin a wheel of the 1001 albums you must hear before you die. We listen to that album a few times during the week, then we get back to you and let you know if we think it's an album you must hear before you die. Along with my brother Adam and our friend Jack, who spun the wheel this week, I'm Justin. If you're watching for the first time or listening, if you'd like to give us a follow on Spotify, we'd appreciate that. And if you'd like to subscribe on YouTube, we'd appreciate that too. We have new episodes almost every Monday. So we welcome you to join us as we're in the albums in the 50s right now as far as the podcast go. Jack, as I said, got the wheel this week, and he got 1980s album from Northern Ireland outfit, the Undertones. And the album, what an album cover it is. It's called Hypnotized. Let's dive right into this thing. Like these guys looking for lobster.
All right, so initial reaction to the Undertones Hypnotized for me. When the wheel came up and said Hypnotized, I first thought of Notorious B.I.G. and he had a song called Hypnotized, but not an album called Hypnotized. Whenever Jack did a little research here, it's from the band The Undertones, who I'm vaguely familiar with. I know their song Teenage Kicks. That was on a couple compilations from around this time period. I'm going into this not knowing anything on this album. Just Teenage Kicks. Jack, what about you?
I didn't know anything about the Undertones, and this cover was the first thing that let me know anything about them. So, and that really didn't set the table, so to speak, as to what to expect, because that gives you nothing. It lets you open for the imagination. So I looked forward to listening to it because Ireland in the 70s and 80s gave us some punk bands, so let's see what we get.
Okay, Adam, how'd you feel about this one?
What in God's name are we getting into with this album? Two teenage kids with bibs on eating lobster? This is either going to be great or really cheesy.
And as you both stated, this album cover, and you hate to judge a book by its cover or a record by its cover, but here we go. But we're going to do it anyways. When your first exposure of seeing something is two guys with, it looks like plastic utensils in their hands. It could be metal, I can't tell for sure. Lobster bibs and glasses of water maybe on the table there. It leaves a lot to the imagination to figure out what is going on inside this album.
My thoughts was, when seeing the album cover before listening to anything, was teenage debauchery on holiday. I nailed it spot on with that. I feel like the cover certainly just goes with the vibe of the record. Something along those lines where it makes you feel like you're going on holiday as maybe a middle schooler.
I see a couple young guys, possibly at a lobster restaurant due to their lobster bid. They're happy to be there. And maybe this isn't their most comfortable setting. Maybe a cheeky Bay City Rollers type of record with two guys who like lobster.
So if we get past the packaging and we look at what the Undertones have to offer, we've got 15 songs here. They ran in the same circles as a lot of the punk bands in the late 70s into the early 80s. One thing that I find interesting right off the bat is these guys, their topics might not align with a lot of the bands that I'm used to, at least. The topics range mostly around teenage problems. Talking to girls, a song about a perfect cousin, and then the first song on the album, more songs about chocolate and girls.
Let's just state for the record, the first track on there, More Songs About Chocolate and Girls, should be a theme song for an 80s sitcom dealing with teenagers. By far my favorite find of any song from this season so far. I love it. Kept going back to it. Couldn't get enough. Made the girls listen to it. So More Songs About Chocolate and Girls is fantastic.
The album opener, More Songs About Chocolate and Girl, which leads you to believe that they had previously already done at least one song about chocolate and girls. And this one's a little bit more of it. They just want to let you know that despite all of the ugliness going on in the political scene in Ireland, they still can't get dates. That's what it boils down to. And, they're jealous of their cousins.
So is it weird hearing songs about awkward pubescent adolescence from punks?
I find it extremely weird. I'm used to a little bit of rage, a little angstiness. That's a word behind it. I don't get anything like that on this album. I guess it's all in the ear of the beholder. What you're looking for as far as an album goes. Are the hooks there? Are these songs any good? One hook that got in my head that I hated all week was There Goes Norman.
This is Northern Ireland. It's in the late 70s, early 80s. A lot of politically leaning punk came out of that area, and it did not come out of the Undertones.
I think punk rock is good at doing that, and awkwardness and that adolescent, they kind of hit this spot on. So it wasn't weird at all. Actually put me in the mindset of like middle school. And is that weird for a 47-year-old?
Perhaps.
But I was kind of flooded with memories of like going to the beach and stuff like that. We went to Myrtle Beach when I was in 8th grade, and I think this would have been a great album to put headphones on and awkwardly roll down the boardwalk.
It's definitely not overproduced. They get it done, they move on to the next topic, which is similar to the previous topic. What it reminded me of that just mainly was that shaky, quaky vocal made me think of the Dead Kennedys, Jello Biafra. They're not talking about some of the subjects that Jello did.
Jack, that hits the nail on the head. For me, I thought the same exact thing. This reminds me of the Dead Kennedys. Let's just say we sanitize everything that Jello is saying and make a G-rated version of the Dead Kennedys. That's how I felt with Hypnotized.
Feargal Sharkey, I remember seeing that name throughout the 80s. Couldn't tell you what a song is by him, but that name stuck out because it reminded me of seagulls and sharks and fear of seagulls and sharks because of Feargal and Sharky.
Evidently, while I think of the beach a lot with this album, it actually was recorded in the Netherlands.
Hey, if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much.
Guys from Northern Ireland recording in the Netherlands, making you feel like you're at the beach.
A lot of this I see pushed towards the punk pop revolution, if you will, of the mid-90s.
Green Day just didn't borrow their style. They completely ripped them off and stole everything about this album, to the fact that Hypnotized and Dookie, if you look, are both exactly 15 songs and 38 minutes long. So they were certainly an influence on Green Day. And if you thought Dookie was something like magnificent, if you go back in time and listen to this, you go, oh, wait, somebody else was doing that before Green Day did it. They just reinvented it in the 90s.
I would say like Blink-182 would be the R-rated version, the real American Pie raunchy version of the Undertones Hypnotized. But I could see this being used as like a soundtrack in a campy 80s movie. You know, something like Up the Creek. A young me remembered seeing breasts for the first time in a movie in Up the Creek. This would be the perfect soundtrack to that.
I'll take you back to December of 81. A movie called Neighbors comes out with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. Rated R. I'm a young person. And we have to go to the movies for Christmas vacation with the cousins and everything. Of course, John Belushi fan wanted to go see Neighbors. It's not appropriate for all ages. It's rated R. So in the movie next to it, it was a twin or a 3-screen theater. Cinderella was re-released. That's the Undertones. The Undertones are the Cinderella re-release to the Boomtown Rat and the Stiff Little Fingers R-rated Neighbors. It hasn't quite got the anger the other siblings have.
The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd, but only at the beach and their families coming together. Wouldn't My Perfect Cousin be like the perfect song to set up a family holiday movie? Great guitar licks and some catchy lyrical hook. The songs like Hypnotized, There Goes Norman, What's with Terry, My Perfect Cousin, all great tunes on the album. I really enjoyed pretty much every song. There weren't any real duds, I didn't think, on this one.
I was not as enthusiastic as you, Adam, about this album. Maybe I was expecting more. The fact that, they're from Northern Ireland, I was expecting more grit. The tunes you listed there, Adam, I did find to be the best on this album. But if there's one song that's just awful, that would be their cover of Under the Boardwalk. Maybe like Born to Be Wild on the Cult's Electric. Like, what is this doing here? Like, what is happening here?
All of the other songs on the album are about how they're socially awkward and can't get the girl, so they decide to do a cover of a guy that's successful with a girl making out under the boardwalk. They got a piece of a puzzle from somebody else's box and they're trying to jam it in there. It doesn't fit. That's not how it works, dog.
No, it appears Adam was HYP. He was hypnotized by this thing. He had the highest rating with a 6.933. I gave it a 5.67. Jack a 4.71 for an overall rating of 5.6. That's us giving every song on the album a scale of 1 to 10 and dividing that by the number of songs on the album. Our favorite songs, My Perfect Cousin, more songs about chocolate and girls don't talk. And probably because me and Jack didn't enjoy it, Under the Boardwalk, the lowest rated song on this thing.
I could see it now. On the last day of school, the coolest teacher in school, we'll call him Mr. Jack, stops any kid he knows in the parking lot as they're leaving for summer break and hands out Hypnotized to the kids. And he says, listen to this, kids. It'll blow your mind. What they don't know is that he had stumbled upon a box of these cassettes, and he's just trying to get rid of them.
Jack, are you giving out free cassettes of this?
No, it is too repetitive, it's too simplistic, and that vocal styling gets old. It even gets old when the Dead Kennedys do it. But when you're not talking about anything that's really of a fundamental conflict in people's lives, it is even more annoying. So this is not an album you must hear before you die.
I'm also going to echo Jack's no and say, no, this is not an album you need to hear before you die. I like Teenage Kicks, and every time I listen to this on Spotify, it would kick to something from their first album that sounded a lot sharper and better than what was on this album. Because of the hype of the first album carried over, I wonder how much that has to go into Robert Dimer's thinking of, hey, this should be in the book of 1001 albums. I think the only way I could connect with this is if I was 14 years old and in Great Britain at the time. I am not in that category, so this did not connect with me. Adam, why don't you shine some good light on the Undertones for us?
I do think that before you die, you need to be HYP hypnotized by the Undertones. I think you need to get focused in on your teen angst from your middle school years. I think you need to get dressed in black. I think you need to go to the boardwalk, walk around on the beach, and just get lost in this album. So it's an absolute yes for me. And listen to it just to see how much Green Day ripped them off with Dookie. I know I have a soft spot for this type of music, but fun, fast, and in your face is where it's at, and I love that type of music, and the Undertones with Hypnotized fits that mold.
Okay, let's move on to our next album. It'll be album number 53, and it's up to me to spin the wheel. Here we go. And the wheel is spinning, and okay. I own this album, probably because I like the girl from Ipanema. It is Getz Alberto from Stan Getz and
João Gilberto
on the next Wheel of Albums.
And then I guess the album cover photo was actually taken at a seafood restaurant in New York, not at the beach either, as far as that goes. So not bad, guys from Derry. You're all over the place.
And I also didn't like that I had to learn what the term Wednesday week meant. Wednesday week refers to the Wednesday that occurs 7 days after the upcoming Wednesday, essentially meaning a week from Wednesday. I don't even understand that phrase, and possibly that has guided my choice that this is not an album you must hear before you die.